My wife laughed drunk getting out of her male coworker's car. It was just one fun night. Stop being dramatic. I didn't yell, just canceled her cards, exposed her affair, and left her with nothing. I was lifting a box labeled winter clothes / memories / who cares anymore. And she was on the patio, barefoot, tangled in her sequin dress like a candy wrapper. Her makeup had run until it looked like war paint. Her coworker had dropped her off at home 10 minutes earlier. Toll or something that starts with the same letter as trash. She applauded me. She clapped as if I were a performer in some tragic circus of her own making. Seriously, she slurred. Are you really doing this because I had one fun night? I didn't say a word. I had already said enough over the last year. 1,000 silent screams swallowed behind polite nods. This time I let the sound of the packing tape answer her. She hiccuped and added, "It was one night. Not even. God, you're so dramatic." It wasn't one night. It was the night after I spent 3 weeks planning a weekend trip for us. She never showed up. It was the night after she told me she wouldn't lie anymore, and then went out in a backless dress, with no coat and no apologies. The night after I found out from her best friend's boyfriend that she hadn't worked a Friday in 3 months, but had been busy every Friday night. I finished loading the last box labeled living room / cushions / divorce vibes and closed the truck door. She stumbled forward, barefoot on the driveway. The Rimmel tears finally catching up to the tequila. You're not really leaving, Wendell. Come on. This isn't you. You don't have the guts. I canceled your credit cards, I said calmly, without pride, just stating a fact. That stopped her in her tracks. And the rent, I added. The lease is in my name. I already gave notice. You have 2 weeks before the landlord changes the locks. You'd better call Tile or whatever his name is. I hope he has a guest room. Her eyes finally regained their sobriety. Seriously, 1 second it was just drunk noise. The next, zap. Total silence. Reality hit her like a bucket of cold water down her back. She whispered, "Are you serious?" I nodded. She looked around as if the driveway had shifted to another dimension. But why now? Why now? Because last night, while she was out celebrating some launch at a neon-lit dive bar with the guy who calls her queen in Slack direct messages, I was at home sitting at the kitchen table looking at a photo of us from when we thought wrestling with a tent zipper was our biggest problem. I stared at that photo until 3:12 in the morning, and then I did something she never expected. I finally decided to matter to myself, and now she was watching that decision drive away in a 14-foot U-Haul. That night, after the U-Haul was gone and I had settled into a temporary rental with a couch that smelled of sadness and must, I allowed myself a single indulgence. I logged into our shared streaming account and deleted her profile. Not out of spite, but for symbolism. Trina and Wendell became just Wendell. I watched the cursor blink where her name used to be and felt something strange, something almost like peace. But peace is a luxury I wasn't ready for yet. You see, she didn't just lose me when she walked out barefoot onto the driveway, laughing at my pain. She lost something she didn't even know I held in my hand. Control, a silent, invisible control. And the unraveling began long before that U-Haul showed up. I had started months ago when things began to feel strange. When her eyes stopped lighting up when I walked into the room, when she stopped asking how my day was, when every hug felt like a forced gesture at a family funeral. I didn't fight her. Then, I just started watching, not prying, not hacking, just noticing. And oh, there was so much to notice once you stopped pretending you didn't see it. I knew about Tyler, not because she told me, but because I listened. She said his name in her sleep once, didn't moan it, didn't whisper it like a scandal, just said it softly, like someone hailing a cab. I remember lying next to her, staring at the ceiling in the dark, blinking in time with the ceiling fan and thinking, Tyler, huh? And that was all I needed. Over the next few weeks, I became a ghost in my own life. Silent, unnoticed. I started collecting passwords, copying bank statements, rerouting mail. Again, not for revenge. I wanted to know what kind of battlefield I was walking into. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was trying to stop the bleeding without her even noticing. The night she came home smelling of sweat, vodka, and a cologne that wasn't mine, she crashed into bed like it was nothing. She wasn't even pretending to care anymore. And while she slept, I sat at the kitchen table and changed the password to the home Wi-Fi. That was my first move. The next morning, she woke up in her usual haze, grabbed her phone, and blinked. "Why isn't the Wi-Fi working?" she mumbled. I shrugged. No idea. Maybe the router is broken. She cursed under her breath and disappeared into the bathroom. But I saw it. The twitch in her expression. The first crack. That phone was her oxygen mask, and without it, she was suffocating. She couldn't text him. She couldn't check if he had texted back. I imagined her tapping the message icon like a lab rat pressing a food button that had stopped working. That afternoon, she went to her friend's house to fix it. I already knew what was waiting for her there. Nothing, because I had already disabled her cloud access and rerouted all verification emails to my backup account. The more she tried to reach out, the more dead ends she would find, but I still didn't confront her. Not yet. She still thought I was weak. She still thought I would fold like I always did. She didn't realize I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was letting her feel what it was like to lose something she never thought could be gone, and she had no idea the worst was yet to come. Because by the time she found out her work phone was no longer on the family plan and her social media accounts started mysteriously vanishing one by one, she would realize the truth. She wasn't married to a doormat. She was married to a man who waited for her to turn her back and then set the bridge on fire. It started with the Spotify account. One minute she was blasting her playlist, Hot Jalurgy, in the bathroom, and the next the music cut out mid-song. First she yelled at the speaker, then at the app, then at me. I told her maybe it was the Wi-Fi again, even though I knew she was no longer authorized. I had changed the password, email, and recovery number weeks ago. Then it was her Gmail, then Netflix, then Venmo. Every time she reached for a piece of herself, a little digital fingerprint of her carefully manicured online world, it was gone. Just gone, as if her existence had been silently excised from the internet with a scalpel. And still she didn't know it was me. That's the thing about people like Trina. When they assume you're weak for long enough, they stop looking over their shoulder. They mistake silence for surrender. They forget that quiet people don't raise their voices when they've had enough. They just leave the door open and let the storm in. But she was starting to feel it now. The shift. She came home that Thursday earlier than usual, no silver dress, no lipstick, no fake, energetic stories about brainstorming sessions with Tyler at some 24-hour co-working cafe, whatever that meant. She came in quietly, and for once looked tired in a way makeup couldn't fix. I was sitting at the dining room table again, pretending to read a book I had already finished. She hesitated for a minute behind me. I didn't say a word. I think someone hacked my stuff, she said finally. I turned a page slowly. That's weird. It's not just one thing. I can't get into anything. Instagram says my username doesn't exist. I nodded like she was telling me about the weather. How strange. She paused, and I could feel her staring at me, waiting for a blink, a twitch, a sign. But I gave her nothing. Not because I was smug, but because I was exhausted. Do you know what it's like to live in the same house as someone who has cheated on you and expects you to keep restocking the toilet paper? It's not pain, it's day-by-day erosion, until your bones turn to dust and you smile through it like a polite ghost. She moved closer, her voice softer. You can help me reset it. You're good with that stuff. That almost made me laugh. Help her reset the world I had carefully and methodically dismantled. I wanted to scream. You lit the match, and now you want me to rebuild the house. But I didn't. I just tilted my head. I thought Tyler was the tech-savvy one, and there it was. A silence so loud I could hear the shift in her heartbeat. She froze for just a second, but it was all I needed. Her pupils shifted, her lips parted, her hand twitched as if reaching for an excuse that hadn't loaded yet. I don't know what you think, Wendell, she began, that old defensive tone creeping in, the one she used when she was caught in a lie she hadn't quite prepared. I stood up and faced her. Calm, cold. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I know enough to make you disappear from your own life without touching a single hair on your head. She looked at me like I had grown a second head. And maybe I had. Maybe I was finally becoming the version of myself that had been buried under all those nights of pretending everything was fine. But now I was done pretending. And the best part, she had no idea how deep this went, because she hadn't just lost her accounts. She had lost access to something much bigger. And the next morning, she was going to wake up and find out the job she used to cheat on me no longer existed. I imagine the scene vividly. Trina walking into the lobby of that downtown glass tower, heels clicking with confidence, iced coffee in hand, probably still texting someone she shouldn't be. The same hand that used to rest on my chest when she said, I love you. Now carrying caffeine and lies. She would have smiled at the security guard like always. Probably would have made some half-flirtatious joke about the weather. Then she would swipe her access card at the turnstile like any other Monday. And then, nothing. A red light. A dull beep. Try again. Beep again. Beep. I didn't see it in person, of course, but I felt it because I was the one who submitted the anonymous complaint for a security audit to her HR department 6 weeks earlier. I told them one of their employees had been using company tools to maintain extracurricular communications during business hours. Screenshots, IP logs, Slack timestamps, all of it forwarded. No names needed, just the kind of breadcrumbs that make corporate lawyers panic. It wasn't even hard to pull off. She used our home network for everything. I didn't need to hack anything. I just watched and documented. She had no idea the company had already started investigating weeks ago, that they had begun quietly monitoring her messages, that one of those late work nights with Tyler had happened inside a hotel booked on a company card by accident, something she was too sloppy to notice. The company didn't even fire her for morality. They did it for legal liability. I was sitting on the patio that morning with a cup of black coffee when I got the text from a former coworker of hers, someone who still followed me on Instagram, someone who didn't know we had split up. "Hey man, hope you're okay. Heard Trina got escorted out this morning. What happened?" I didn't reply. I just stared at the quiet street, letting the morning breeze wash over my skin. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those months I begged her to talk to me, and now everyone was talking about her. She came home 2 hours later than usual, and for once, she wasn't pretending to be busy. She walked in slowly, head down, hands shaking just enough for me to notice. I didn't get up, didn't speak. I just watched her drop her purse by the door and lean against the wall like it was holding her up. "I've been fired," she said without looking at me. "Effective immediately." I nodded. "They said there was an internal investigation," she continued. "Someone accused me of using company systems for personal matters." She didn't even break. I let the silence hang, and finally she looked at me. Her face wasn't angry this time. It was scared. And for the first time since this all started, I saw it. Not guilt, not regret, fear. The dawning realization that the man she had emotionally abandoned was now 10 steps ahead of her and had been for a very long time. "It was you," she started, her voice cracking, almost breaking. "Did you do something?" "No," I replied. Not because I couldn't, but because she didn't deserve the closure. Instead, I stood up, walked to the table, and placed a single envelope in front of her. Inside was a printout, a timeline, a breakdown, every missed call, every unexplained night, every bank transaction, every logged Slack message, every trace of Tyler. I had labeled it in bold black marker with a single word, receipts. She didn't open it, just stared at it like it might explode. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and as I reached the door, I heard her whisper, "I didn't think you had the guts." And she was right. I didn't either. Not at first. But being invisible for long enough does something to a man. It teaches him patience, it teaches him to watch without blinking, and it teaches him how to remove someone from their own world. One quiet step at a time, until they have nothing left to stand on. And she had just realized she hadn't lost her job. She had lost her leverage, and I wasn't done yet. 3 days passed after she lost the job. She spent most of it in bed. No mascara, no fake smiles, just curled up as if someone had pulled the plug on her life. Occasionally, she would shuffle to the fridge, microwave something, and shuffle back to bed. She didn't ask where I was going, didn't ask if I was staying. I think a part of her knew, really knew that something was coming, but she didn't know from where. That was always her weakness. Trina only saw danger in people who yelled. She never considered that the quietest man in the room might be the one holding the matches. And now it was time for the next fire. On Sunday, I drove to the one place she never thought I would go, her mother's house. Now let me explain something. Her mother, Delia, thinks Trina is a saint. She's always been the golden child. Trina could steal a police car and set it on fire in the middle of a church parking lot. And Delia would still say, "My daughter has a good heart." And me, I was always the boring, stable, predictable husband, a man with steady hands and no spark. You know, the kind of guy mothers tolerate because he always brings their daughter back on time. Delia opened the door wearing an apron that said Queen of the Kitchen and a smile that faded the moment she saw me standing there alone, without Trina by my side. I asked if we could talk. She hesitated, probably thinking we had split up and I was there to make some passionate plea, but she let me in. We sat at her kitchen table, the same place where Trina and I had carved our initials on the underside during a Thanksgiving 6 years ago. And then I told her everything. No rage, no bitterness, just facts. The clean, clinical, undeniable truth. The nights she didn't come home. The work trip that wasn't a work trip, the Slack logs, the hotel receipts, the messages with Tyler, some of which, and I'm not kidding, were so disgustingly sappy they read like bad fanfic. I didn't even have to embellish. I just let the evidence speak. Delia sat there, her lips pressed so tightly her mouth practically disappeared. For a while she said nothing. Then she asked, "Do you have proof?" I slid the folder across the table, the same one I had given Trina. Same label, receipts. She opened it slowly, as if it might bite. I left that day without asking for support, validation, or sympathy. I didn't need her on my side. I just needed her to know, to see her daughter, not through the lens of delusion, but of reality. I needed Trina's support system to feel the fracture. Why? What good is an echo chamber when the walls start to crumble? When I got home, Trina was sitting at the kitchen table, phone in her hand, her eyes wide. Her posture wasn't relaxed anymore. It looked cornered. "You went to my mother's house?" she asked. No anger, just shock. I hung my jacket by the door and nodded. She deserved the truth. So did I. She stood up, her voice trembling. "You had no right." "No." I walked closer to her, and this time I didn't flinch. "I had no right to tell the woman who praised your integrity at every holiday dinner that her daughter was cheating on me with a coworker at a Marriott off exit 14? I had no right to show her what I saw in our living room at 3 in the morning while you were busy pretending not to exist in this marriage." She sank back into the chair, speechless. I continued, my voice even and deliberate, like I was reading a menu. "By the way, she told me something interesting. She said she always thought I was too good for you." I think she meant it as an insult. I took it as a confirmation, and then I said it. The sentence that hit her harder than anything so far, because being too good is exactly what made me dangerous. She didn't sleep that night. I know because I heard her pacing upstairs. She called friends. None of them answered. She tried texting Tyler. Yes, I saw the screen's reflection in the window, but his messages had gone silent 2 days ago. I already knew why, but I was saving that surprise for later. And so she stayed in the house, alone with the version of me she never expected. The man who doesn't raise his voice, but still manages to take everything from you. She hadn't just lost her job. She hadn't just lost her sense of control. Now she was starting to lose her image, and the lies were rotting from the inside out. And I was only halfway done. By Tuesday, I noticed a shift in the air around her. Not just guilt, not just dread, something worse. A kind of frantic, silent panic you only see in people who have just realized the cavalry isn't coming. I had been watching it quietly, like you watch a houseplant slowly die even though it's still green. She had stopped wearing makeup, not for comfort, but for control. You see, Trina always used appearance as armor, but now she wasn't even bothering. She spent her days walking from room to room, texting, refreshing, calling again. I would see glimpses of her staring at her screen, willing it to light up. Every buzz from my phone made her flinch. I knew why, of course. She was waiting for him. For Tyler, her beloved, who is just a coworker, who accidentally showed up on our grocery list app once because she was stupid enough to sync him as a contact. She thought I never noticed. She thought I never wondered why a marketing associate was suddenly interested in joint budgeting. But here's the thing. When a woman stops hiding something, that's not freedom, it's arrogance. She assumed he would protect her, or at least respond. He didn't. By then I had already spoken to Tyler, not in person. That would have been too theatrical. I reached out via an email under a business alias I used for freelance consulting. He had no idea who I was. We exchanged 5 emails. He thought I was from a recruiting firm seeking feedback on corporate culture and past team leadership. I asked him what kind of environment he preferred, if he had ever been involved in any non-HR approved relationships with coworkers, and if he would consider new opportunities if his current situation soured. He was eager as a kid invited to sit at the grown-ups table for the first time. And then, when I dropped the final question, have you ever had to quietly step away from something before HR got wind of it? The tone changed. He stopped responding. 2 days later, he deleted his LinkedIn. 3 days after that, Trina could no longer find his number on her phone. I didn't delete it. I didn't have to. He did. She asked me about him that afternoon, casually, like it was small talk. Have you, um, heard from Tyler from work? I was making tea. I stirred slowly. No, why? Her voice cracked slightly, like the first fissure in a windshield. He's not answering. I think something might have happened. Oh, I let the silence marinate. Then I added, didn't you say he was married? That landed. She flinched as if I had slapped her. Her eyes searched mine, probably trying to figure out if I knew everything. She didn't realize she was already living in the aftermath. The thing that really broke her wasn't his silence. It was the realization that she wasn't his first betrayal, just his next mistake. Because here's the fun part. Remember that anonymous email I mentioned before? The one I sent to her company's HR. There was another version, modified, dated, letterhead, and sent to his wife. She was a lawyer. I made sure of that before I hit send. So while Trina was spinning in circles trying to reach him, he was neck deep in a hell of his own. One I never had to witness. I didn't want to. I just wanted the silence. The glorious silence that comes when someone realizes they've burned their life down for a man who wouldn't even return a text message. At midnight, she was sitting on the hallway floor, barefoot, staring at the wall as if it held answers. I think I've ruined everything, she said. I didn't disagree, and I didn't comfort her. I went upstairs, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. Because when you're finally ready to let go of someone who thought you'd never leave, you don't need closure, you become it. The morning she made breakfast, I knew something was wrong. Not wrong in a betrayal way, but wrong in a strategic way. I woke up to the smell of eggs, toast, and something sweet. She was humming in the kitchen quietly, the way she used to before everything fell apart. There were even flowers on the table, awkwardly cut short, as if she had panicked at the last minute and didn't know how to arrange them. She was wearing the gray cardigan I once told her I loved. The one with the tiny coffee stain on the cuff she used to hide with her sleeve. She smiled when she saw me as if we were in the last 10 minutes of a romantic comedy, as if all of this could be undone with toast and orange juice. I thought I'd make you something, she said softly. I nodded and sat down. I didn't thank her. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. We ate in silence, and she tried. Oh, she tried to pretend this was normal. She asked about my work. She mentioned a movie we watched once in the 3rd year of our marriage. As if I didn't notice the sudden nostalgia grenade she was trying to lob into the air between us. She even reached for my hand once gently, as if she wasn't sure if it was still allowed. And for a moment, I almost let myself forget. For a moment, I wanted to believe in this performance, that people could break everything and then glue it back together with pancakes and polite smiles. That somehow we could go back to that version of us before the Slack messages, the late-night meetings, and the smell of another man's cologne in her hair. But I had already made my decision, and she didn't know it yet. After breakfast, we sat in the living room. She curled her legs under her the way she used to on Sundays when she'd read half a chapter of a book and then get distracted scrolling through Instagram. This time she looked at me directly. Really looked at me. I miss us, she said. And for once her voice didn't have that sharp, performative edge. It was soft, small, real. I know I messed everything up, but I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far. I said nothing. I thought you'd always be there, she continued. That no matter how far I strayed, you'd pull me back. You always did. You were the anchor, and there was the mistake. She thought love made me immovable. She thought my silence meant security, that I was incapable of leaving just because I had waited so long before doing it. But silence isn't weakness. Silence is preparation. And what she didn't know, what she couldn't guess, was that I had already signed the papers, the separation documents, the financial cutoff notices, the lease termination, all of it dated, processed, finalized. I had opened a new account. I had packed what was left. I had already found a small apartment on the other side of town, one where the shadows didn't remind me of her figure in the doorway, one where I didn't have to breathe in her absence like secondhand smoke. I had also submitted the updated report to the HR department of the company where Tyler used to work, his messages cross-referenced with hers, their mutual violations of non-disclosure agreements. His exit had been quiet. Hers would be remembered. I stood up. She blinked. Where are you going? I have to drop off the keys, I said. Keys, she repeated, her voice already cracking. To the new place. And that's when her face broke. It didn't just crumble, it shattered. She stood up like a child who realizes the store has closed and she's been locked inside. Wait, what do you mean a new place? Are you moving out? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Everything had already been answered. Months of silence, of slow exits, of quiet strategy. All she had to do was pay attention, but she never did. "You're really going to leave me," she whispered, stunned, as if I haven't been gone for weeks. "I'm already gone," I said, and I meant it. I wasn't getting lost. I had been lost a long time ago. This was just the echo finally reaching her ears. 2 weeks later, I was standing in the middle of my new apartment. Bare walls, dusty floor, no furniture except for a secondhand couch and a reclaimed wood coffee table that looked better in the pictures than it did in person. The light was different here, softer. It came through the windows like it didn't have to prove anything, like it belonged. I didn't cry, I didn't laugh, I just exhaled. I hadn't done that in years. I sat on the floor with a cup of tea and let the silence settle. Not the kind of silence that suffocates, but the kind that wraps around you like a blanket you'd forgotten you owned out. I could hear distant traffic and a dog barking somewhere down the street. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No secrets, no tension, no pretending everything was okay while I was slowly dying inside my own home. I hadn't heard from Trina since I left. Not a text, not a call, not even a half-hearted message saying, "I'm sorry." I don't know if it was pride or shame, or maybe just a sign that she finally understood that words weren't going to fix what actions destroyed. I thought I would feel anger. I thought maybe I would wake up one night and want to scream or call her or beg her to tell me it was all a dream, that she had made a mistake, that we could still fix it. But that feeling never came. Instead, something else did, space. And in that space, I remembered who I was before all of this, before I became background noise in my own marriage, before I allowed myself to be someone's afterthought who couldn't even remember to look me in the eye, before I spent every day trying to decipher silence, instead of just speaking my truth. I started going to the gym again. Nothing crazy, just walking on the treadmill, getting my heart moving, letting the endorphins do their work. I signed up for a cooking class and burned the first 3 meals so badly the instructor asked if I was trying to make smoke signals. We laughed. It felt good to laugh. I even reconnected with some old friends. The ones I drifted away from when Trina started saying, "They're a little intense, don't you think?" It's funny how people like her always want to shrink your world down to just them. They welcomed me back with open arms. We talked, played cards, drank cheap beer on Friday nights, like we were still in college. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't worried about who was texting my wife or if she would come home smelling like someone else's cologne. I didn't miss her. I missed the version of her I thought I had, the one who looked at me like I mattered. But that version never existed. Not really. I think deep down I knew that. I just loved the idea of her more than the reality. A lot of us do. One afternoon, while I was walking home from the grocery store, a breeze picked up. It caught me by surprise, not just because of the chill, but because it carried something else with it, a feeling I hadn't recognized in months. Freedom. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, let the wind hit my face, and smiled like an idiot. I must have looked crazy to the people walking by, but in that moment I felt whole again. Not because I won, not because she lost, but because I survived. I came out on the other side without having to become cruel or bitter. I didn't need to destroy her to find myself. I just needed to let her go. And now I sleep better. I breathe deeper. I laugh louder, and the silence, the one that used to haunt me, now it sounds like peace.